again, and welcome back to my channel. I'm Tom Collier, the Painting Fool. I'm glad you're here, and I hope you're having a great summer. I was thinking about all the great summers from long ago, and an image came to my mind of a little cabin on a little lake named Mayo, which my parents owned for weekend getaways. It was an idyllic little cabin, and the view of the lake was postcard perfect. There was a little island straight out from the shoreline, and there were many peaceful mornings sitting on their dock and gazing at that little island. It's a pleasant memory for me, so I decided to paint a semi-abstract watercolor of how I remember it. I used some new supplies for this one: Da Vinci watercolors and 11 by 15 300-pound Kilimanjaro cold pressed paper, large and small Hake brushes, Polar Flow 1-inch flat, and a Cheap Joe's No. 3 rigger. This was a fun, fast, and loose experiment for me, which I'm learning while I'm learning the nuances of the Hake brushes. I call this one Mayo Lake Mornings. I hope you'll give me a thumbs up if you like this one, and maybe even subscribe. Thanks for watching, and let's get wet and watch some paint dry. Well, here we go again. We're using a large Hake and wetting down the paper, getting a good sopping wet. And I'm going to start on the sky, of course. That's my MO. Ultramarine blue, that's the color I'm using, and we'll try to get a little bit of a gradient going here, so it's, the darkest on the top, and then getting a little bit lighter as it moves toward where the horizon will be. Well, the sun must be coming up. The music is indicating that the sun's just about ready to pop over the horizon. There it is. Okay, well, we put a little bit of raw sienna in there, just below the ultramarine, and now I'm painting the foreground. Tried to make the blue darker, and we certainly did that. So we may have to lift a little of that out of there and lighten that up as we go along. We'll see how it goes. Okay, there's our horizon. I remember the first time I went out to this cabin on Mayo Lake that my parents bought, and it was just a kind of a cute little place, and when I looked out and saw that little island, I thought, gee, how much better can it get? It just looked perfect. So there were many summers I had to go and help my father get his dock in, which was no easy chore here. This lake, at least on the side of the lake that my folks' cabin was on, the shoreline just drops right off to, if you're 10 feet out from the shore, you're already up to your chest, and I'm 6'1", so we could get about the first section, 10-foot section of dock in with waders, and actually standing in the lake, and then After that, we had to kind of float the pieces out and work from one of us on the dock and the other one in a boat. It was kind of a major ordeal, but we got it done every spring, and then of course it had to come out in the fall. The joys of owning a lake place, I guess. Well, as you can see, we've put the island in there, and now we're going to get a little reflection of this sky going on. It was a real small lake, Mayo Lake was. It's actually, in a chain of lakes that runs along and into the Gull Lake further south. So as a result, the fishing wasn't too bad. A lot of pan fishing there. My mother used to like to just sit for hours down on the dock and float a bobber out. And I actually have a pretty good sized crappie that she caught hanging on my wall here that my dad kindly had mounted for her. Okay, using the rigger right now, I'm trying to put a little bit of subtle texture into the foliage on this island. I remember once when I was over for a visit, and I was living in Fargo when they first got this place, so it was about a 150-mile drive for me over to where this is located, just south of Pequot Lakes and just north of Nisswa. And I usually, would just come over on the weekend and spend a couple of days, and I kind of wanted to do some fishing, so we were sitting having breakfast that Saturday morning, and I mentioned to my mother, I said, well, I'm going to drive over and pick up a fishing license. She said, oh, I don't think you need to really bother with that because this lake is so small and inconsequential, they're never going to check anybody here. I said, well, I don't want to take the chance, so, I'm just going to get a 2-day temporary license, and then I don't have to worry about it. So I did. I drove, it wasn't too long of a drive, a couple of miles to a bait and tackle shop where I could pick up that license, and came back, and after a while, Mom and I went down to the dock, and we were sitting there doing some fishing, and all of a sudden there was this boat traveling at a pretty high speed, which is kind of an unusual sight on this small lake, and he headed right our direction. And Mom said, I wonder who that jerk is. I think when he comes by here, I'm going to give him the finger. Well, as the boat got a little closer, I could recognize a few distinct details about it. I said, I wouldn't recommend you do that, Mom. That's a conservation
officer, game warden, and they pulled their boat right up to the dock and checked our licenses. My mother had hers in her purse up in the cabin, so she she had to take off running. And I remember thinking, gosh, I hope they don't think she's a fugitive. She came back down and showed it to them. It all worked out just fine, but I thought it was a very funny, kind of humorous story that my dear old mother was trying to encourage me to break the law, and I wasn't having it. So I'm glad I got that license and avoided having to deal with probably a fine. But anyway, that's one of my vivid memories of that place. Okay, we're going along. I'm kind of wrestling with the reflection in the water here, so things are possibly getting a little bit overworked, but we'll fix it somehow. Got my new Polar Flow synthetic 1-inch flat wash brush that I'm working with right now. They come in handy for anytime you need to illustrate a straight flat line. They work pretty good for that. Many mornings you'd look out at that island, and there would on the opposite shore there would just be ever so much slight hint of a little low-lying fog that would kind of creep along the shoreline. That's what I'm trying to put in right now. And darken the tree line on that opposite shore. The sun's not quite up, so we'll be dealing with silhouette there. Okay, we're just working at lifting out so that there's even though this island is mostly silhouetted, I want to be able to say there's a little bit of impression of texture there, that there's, you know, these are trees after all, so. We're using a brush that's called a scrubber. You have to be kind of careful with them because you can really rip up the paper. These are by Creative Mark. They're called Fitch scrubbers. I have a set of about 7 or 8 of them, different sizes. They work pretty good, but like I said, you have to, you know, have a gentle touch with them. Picked up my rigger now, put in a few little details of trees popping up over in that tree line a little bit, so things don't look too straight. This lake was real quiet back in the days when I would visit my parents. There was basically, the cabin was a little 2-bedroom cabin that was part of a resort at one time. Real small, real secluded. This opposite shoreline that's behind the island there, as far as I know back then, was pretty much completely undeveloped. So it was nice. It was very quiet, very private, and very relaxing because of that. Well, we're just trying to get the finishing touches in here. I think we need a little more water, so just kind of misted it down a little bit here. And got my trusty Kleenex back and trying to recreate that little low-lying fog. But now I've decided that I need a darker reflection, so We're going to put that in along the shoreline. Yeah, all right. There you have it. Mayo Lake morning. Sitting on the dock, just daydreaming away. Thanks so much for watching. Really appreciate it. Tell all your friends. And consider subscribing if you would, please. That'd be a nice thing to do. Until next time, I'm Tom Collier, the Painting Fool.